This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Yeah, I just recorded an entire podcast episode for you that I then saw didn't record. Yeah, so I mourned that and I decided just to jump back in here and do it again. I have missed making podcasts for you and I took a long unintended break from it. And that all served its purpose for the reasons that I'm going to go into. But I just want to say hello and welcome to another episode of the Radical Healing Podcast. And I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so happy to be here with you in this space, whether it's in real time, you're listening to this as I release it, or somewhere into the future, however far that may be. I hope you find yourself, or may you find yourself, in a place of nurturing, gentle, loving, and radical change work with yourself, because change to me really is just about growing. It's not about that anything's wrong and you need to change it. It's about finding the places where you could offer yourself some grace, some learning perhaps, some new skills, letting go of whatever part of your identity and habit formation, your patterns that you've built around any construct of your personality that you're finding is just, you don't need it anymore. And we're allowed to grow and we're allowed to change. And that's really what this podcast is about at its foundation, is giving you not only permission and encouragement to do that, but my intention is also tools and techniques and the wisdom and the lived experience of my guests to help you navigate that in a way that feels personal, fun, exciting, pleasurable, and maybe a little bit like edgy, because I find that that's like where the juice is. That's where it gets fun, is when it's like, ooh, a little bit of taboo work, a little bit, or a lot of uncovering parts of our shadow selves, working with the non-fluffy, non-light stuff, as a way to really embrace and fully accept ourselves. And for me, that a lot of the work that I have avoided doing that I'm now embracing and learning more about and stepping more into, which is helping me feel more balanced, honestly, and more secure in life, are things that I used to rebel against. Those are namely structure, discipline, rules, um, systems, like these kinds of words I used to just balk at and be like, no, no, not for me, not for this rebel bitch. I'm not doing any of that. And in my doing away at an early age with um, this, any kind of like acceptance of these what should we call them, like modalities of life that really offer strength and support and foundation and grounding and strength. I really did myself a disservice. I mean, at a time, it will make sense if you want to hear the story of my life and how I went through these different phases. Um, but when I identified for a long time that I was a rebel and I was going to be, no one was going to tell me what to do, and I didn't want any kind of responsibility, and so I intentionally and then subconsciously developed a part of myself that eschewed many of those things and pushed them away. I'm realizing now in my mid 40s that I am doing myself a disservice to continue to live in a way where I'm just avoidant of these types of things that I used to find distasteful, if that's making sense to you far and thus far, and it will make more sense as we move through this episode. But I've decided that I really want to reframe the way that I use structure and systems and discipline, even and responsibility, even those words as I'm saying them now, I used to just put this bad taste in my mouth, but I'm learning how to reframe these things in my life, these things that I used to avoid, in a way that feels positive and loving and accepting, and also really, probably really importantly, like on my own terms. So I'm going to invite you to come into this episode with something in mind that you really want to change in life. If you're going through some sort of transition, or if you find and feel yourself ungrounded in these uncertain times, or lacking some sort of rhythm and like consistency to your time and your days, this episode is for you. And though, if you are feeling that way, it could be symptomatic of you going through a growth spurt and not having found your external environment meeting up with how you feel internally. So I'll back up a little bit. That's what has been happening to me. I would say over the course of like the last 6 to 8 months, I've been going through like an up leveling, if you will, in my identity and who I want to become, and further shedding layers of who I have been and loving myself through that process. But here I am finding myself that what is really going to serve me is these things that I've been avoiding, such as there's really masculine ways of using structure and discipline and responsibility. So my kids are now between the ages, at the time of this recording, they're between the ages of 4 and like 10 and a half. And what this has meant for me, also being an expat living abroad, also being someone who has shifted in work and what I want to create and the vision for my future, is that I've moved out of this place of like hypervigilance with people pooing their pants and like screaming about peanuts and like putting Play-Doh in the couch. Like there's still a little bit of that, but it was just like times 4 all the time, up and down like whack-a-mole. And it really messed with my nervous system. Like I really had a hard time. I have had a hard time parenting layered with all of the other things that I desire to be in life. But now I'm moving out of that. So it's a transition phase. And when we can like call things out and identify them, it really helps our brain adapt. It really helps our nervous system find new habits that are more suitable for who we're moving into, and changing the habits of the past and who we're moving away from being, in a graceful and loving way, of course. So if you are in a transition of life, or it feels murky, or you're just not sure what's next, or maybe you're also we're the parent of young children and now they're like bigger kids, or maybe your kid's gone off to school, or maybe you're in a career change, or maybe you're getting divorced, or any sort of life transition, what can really help and serve is having some structure in place. Structure blended with ritual. And I'd like to talk more about that. Um, I'd also really love to say that I've taken on two types of new work and learning paths, which you will hear being infused into the content and the things that I'm sharing here on the podcast and on my YouTube channel. The first is that I'm beyond thrilled that I now work for Tony Robbins. I work for a Tony Robbins branded program. I don't like go to his house in Florida and bring him green juice, although that would be amazing. But I indirectly work for a Tony Robbins program, and I'm learning these new types of curriculum, which are really stretching me and creating more refinement and I'll say discipline and structure in my life. And it's really what I've needed for so long. And I could just cry with gratitude for being moved in this direction. Like I asked for it and I wasn't sure what I was going to get. Like I was looking for a place that would employ me, that I could also be in control of my freedoms and all of this. Like a really strong manifestation that brought me into, like, I'll say the goat of personal development. I work for Tony Robbins, which is such a crazy thing that has happened to me. And I am so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful to be learning what I'm learning through his brand and his paradigms, and sharing with you what I can of that in service to you as well. So that's one. And then the second one is that I've also been accepted for 2026 into a tantric healing program, which will really help my clients by the way that I will be instructed to do, to work with the shadow self and to work with sexual trauma and to work with sexual energy as a potent mover and modality for healing what is buried within the soma and within the psyche. So I'm very, very excited to be bringing forward more of that for you. So more on that to come. I just want to plant that seed that that's what's coming down the pipeline. And it's also been a part of my identity shifting process over the last few months. So back to times of transition and what we can do about that. The first thing is you can call it out as an identity shift. And what that means is you can say to yourself or write this down or somehow just get it out of the meanderings of your mind and out of rumination into a tangible transition that's happening, that you're actually going through something. And that's why it feels disorienting, or you might be downward spiraling, or you might be reverting into previous maladaptive habits that you feel like you've actually already made some progress on, for any number of things. If you're identifying with what I'm saying, it's likely that you're experiencing a portal. You're moving through a portal where a new identity is calling you forward, and the older one is just no longer a fit for your soul's journey and the path of your personal evolution. So calling that out, even if you're just calling it just that and you don't quite have the pronouns or the adjectives to define it more clearly, you could say to yourself, I'm going through a transition. I'm going through a shift of identity, and allowing it to occur so it feels less scary and less like a leaf in the wind. Sometimes also these times of transition are kind of marked by like, well, I can do anything in this time, so why am I doing nothing? I speak to many people like that. One client I can think of in particular, her child went off to college, her only child, and that really threw her for a loop in her terms of identity. And so what we did was we helped her transition into a more empowering state of how she identified with herself. So it wasn't just like, well, my kid's gone and I'm no longer a parent of this child at home and I can do whatever I want. Like I have all these hopes and goals and ambitions, but I'm just scrolling and like now I really just want my sugar habit back and that sort of thing. So what we did, and this is what you can do for yourself, is to just call out the identity shift, call out the transition. It's a time of transition, it's a metamorphosis, and name the identity that you are gracefully leaving.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know, when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Moving through, and then you can give yourself as much of an empowering title as you can of what it is that you hope to be. And you don't have to have any evidence for this. It doesn't have to be like, and now I'm a published author and I train for marathons and I feel deeply fulfilled. That might be what you're moving into, but you don't have to have evidence for that. You can just label your dreams and your aspirations and own them as an identity in present tense time. So you can say, I am creatively working. I'm using my time to take charge of my health, to feel as fit in my 40s, even more so than I was in my 20s and 30s. Like really vividly paint the picture of what you desire to step into, which will create an alchemy for this next piece. So again, you don't have to have all the answers. They will come. And then the focus of this episode is to help you use structure and discipline in a way that is medicinal to move through transition. So the first thing you want to do, as I said, is just to identify a way of being that you're stepping into. What is this transition about? What's the next lily pad, so to speak? What's this next stone that you're grabbing as you climb and as you move through an unknown territory? Just name it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be married to it, but something that does infuse you with a sense of excitement. And so then what we want to do from here is we want to create structure within the day-to-day. And the way that I have done that is to separate the day into what I'm calling 4 cornerstones. So 4, a very solid structure when connected, give a very stable structure. So the first might be when you initially wake up. And think about times of transition in the day. So you're just going to pinpoint 4 times of transition in the day. The first ideally would be when you first wake up. The second is probably about midday, times when you notice again that you shift from one mode of being to the other, or when you're obligated to do different things or wear different hats throughout the day, such as going from work to home or work to pick up kids or whatever it is personally for you. Right when you wake up, maybe it's midday, maybe the third one is like evening dinner time. And then the fourth, ideally, again, would be right before bed. Then what it is that you're going to do is, from that place of identity that that you have called out that you're moving into, that version, that part of you, from that place, feel that place in your body first before you answer these next questions. You want to identify, you're going to call out how you want to feel at these 4 cornerstone times of day. Do you want to feel grounded? Do you want to feel like you're allowing yourself some rest, or that you're actually getting a break, an intentional break? Do you want to feel supported? Do you want to feel restful, relaxed, etc.? So for each of these times of day, identify how you want to feel at these times. Write this down. And then the third part of it is to call out, name a small habitual action. A ritual is a better word, that you can insert into these 4 cornerstones. Maybe in the morning, it's just 10 intentional deep breaths outside, or at least near a window. Or maybe you have a meditation practice, or maybe you wanted to get into a meditation practice. And don't take on, my advice is to not take on anything too big. Make it a micro habit to begin. These are just place markers that are matching the identity that you want to move into, a small gesture, a small thing, a pleasurable thing to do that helps you create groundedness in your day for moving through a transitory time, transitional phase of life. That's all this is. Maybe your midday break is a nice tea or a hot tea, or maybe you go outside for a walk around the neighborhood. Maybe at dinner time, there's some preparation things that you can do, setting your exercise clothes out, for example, maybe folding the clothes that are on the couch while listening to a podcast, things that set you up for success for the following day. Maybe that's something I have started doing that actually, and it's been extremely helpful because it allows me to go to bed earlier, which then starts this whole repetitive cycle of feeling better when I wake up. So maybe that's something that's helpful for you too. And then maybe at bedtime, there's something that goes into wellness, hygiene, preferably nothing with a screen. A book is great. Telling stories with other people. If you have small people around, they love organic and improv stories. Stories with your partner or someone you live with. How was your day? Tell me something about your day. Communicating, connecting with other people. These are just small gestures, but they're really so potent. Take a bath. Wash your face. What is it for you? And write that down. And that is structure. That is structure infused with habitual action, which I prefer to call ritual. And writing it down and having it in a place where you can see it is extremely helpful. But what holds all of this into place, to tap back into what I was saying at the beginning of the episode, is reframing certain words that you might feel in opposition to. And for me, one of those words was discipline. Discipline, I was just like, ugh, discipline always made me feel like I was in trouble, or that I was going to be punished, or that there was going to be an act of discipline enacted upon me. And that word discipline just felt so yucky to me for a long time. So I eschewed it, didn't even use it. But there's so much agency available to us in reclaiming words. I could give examples, but I just felt like I didn't want to in this moment. Words that have been reclaimed culturally, like urban dictionary style, reclaiming of words for a more empowered usage in your own personal experience of life. So discipline, as I looked it up, it originates from the Latin disciplina, meaning instruction, training, or learning. I like those words. And it's related to discer, to learn, derived from disciplis, Discipulus. Ooh, discipulus, pardon. I think that is discipulus, though. I'm going to correct that. Meaning student. Discipulus. Discipulus, meaning student or pupil. Student or pupil of life. Its original meaning emphasizes teaching, learning, and the orderly conduct that results from such training. And now see, that to me feels more beautiful than discipline, like I'm going to discipline you into obeying, which is kind of the connotation that I adapted to at an earlier time in life. But reframing negative connotations around these words, if you are someone who is like, blah, to them as well, is a form of personal power. And you can think of structure. I invite you to reframe structure, and I invite you to reframe discipline as forms and acts of self-love. So may that serve for you today. If you would like, I have a little anecdote about how I actually applied this. 2 Sundays ago, my thing sometimes on weekends is that I like to drink an IPA or like a hoppy, I like hops because they have like cannabis stony feeling. And I like that head change, although I am still like working with, do I really want that? Does this fit this evolving version of me? But anyhow, I have graduated from bottomless drinking to intentional consumption. So my thing is to have an IPA and watch comedy. I really like Hot Ones. And so I was watching Hot Ones, and my husband came out, and he really likes to talk about politics and debate and stuff, and I don't, but I like to hang out with my husband. So I was like, I'll engage this conversation. So we talked about global politics, which felt like it was more for him than for me. And after that 30-minute conversation, automated part of me was like, now you drink your IPA and now you get to watch Hot Ones. Even though it was about 11 o'clock at night and I get up at 6 in the morning on weekdays. And I was like, no, I'm going to not feel good if I do that now. And then I was kind of a little bit like in that discourse with myself of what I normally do, what feels routine and natural and safe, and butting up against this part of me that's like, well, what's really better for you? What's really going to serve you? And so when my husband went back in the other room, I was like, okay, well, now it's me and my IPA and Hot Ones, or this is really when I actually need to go to bed so I can start Monday strong. And then I took a beer and I put it in the freezer, and I was like, is this me loving myself, or is this me defaulting? Is this me just doing what I want to do, or is this me on autopilot? And to just make that break and to reframe, just take a moment to reframe. If you're doing things that you're doing and you're like, is this really what I want to be doing? And I said, what would have me not do this right now? And then I decided that having discipline as a form of loving myself would actually feel better to me than to get my self-identified treat time, which is IPA and Hot Ones, right? So I took the beer out of the freezer and I put it back in the shelf to have at some other point in time. And I felt like that's really just what I wanted to do, was to just take care of myself and go to bed. And so when you start to identify more with who it is that you want to become, you can create these break states that allow for some introspection, some questioning, some self-reflection, and reframing things in a way that feels like self-love, like positivity, like it's for you. Like you're not doing it for anybody else, and you're not in trouble, and you don't have to, but like what is really for you and what feels good in a self-loving way to you. So that concludes this episode on how to use structure and discipline in a self-loving way. If you would like, I made a PDF guide that you can access here in the show notes. It's free. You just it will subscribe you to my email list, but if you realize you don't like my email list, you can unsubscribe yourself and keep the free guide. If you're already on my email list, then you're going to receive it anyways. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you next week.
If you're a podcast host, listen up. This one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle. And I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.